Why are you here? No, really. Do you know why?
What if I told you that there's more to it? That there are benefits and resources from heaven that are available to help you in this life, and you've never heard about them? Are you curious? Well, join Gordon Merrill as he digs deeper into making heaven real in this life.
Welcome back to Making Heaven Real. We've said it before, but do you know that there really is no such thing as coincidence? Well, at least not how we have come to use it in modern times. If you go back to Webster's dictionary, it'll tell you that coincidence is the condition or fact of two things happening at exactly the same time. Thus, the in coincidence really has nothing to do with things happening for no reason or for no purpose or, isn't it interesting how that happened? If anything, what you're talking about there is more like a deja vu than coincidence. Your being here is no coincidence. It is a planned, charted pilgrimage for your soul. So why are you here? As best as you can within your limitations mentally as a human, try and imagine. If you're not driving, close your eyes and try and let your mind wander. And imagine what heaven's like. The fact that your Creator God is ever present, everywhere, at all times. The fact that there is nothing ever in heaven that is not a condition of true, pure, unconditional love. So how do you know and understand the full scope of God's presence? How does a spirit in heaven understand that? How do you know the full impact of pure, unconditional love? It has been said that a child growing up in an abusive home does not fully understand the extent of that until they're able to leave that home and see life around them in personal relationships that can be healthy. Now, I know that's not a good analogy and probably a complete opposite extreme to go from heaven to an abusive home, but that gives you the idea of what we're talking about here. A child doesn't know any better when they're growing up in that home, or even if they have an inkling that something's not right, they don't know exactly how bad that situation is until they have something good to compare it to. So if we are to truly know God and truly know unconditional love, then we as spirits have to go through the experience of not having it. So we have to have a contrast to add to our bank of knowledge. You really don't truly understand or appreciate sweet until you've experienced a very nasty sour taste. You don't really understand and experience hot until you've experienced cold. Light's good, but you don't know exactly how much you like it and appreciate it until you're in extreme and complete dark. And for most of us listening here, we're probably going to identify mostly with this one, which is you really don't understand the full depth of true love until you're forced to experience the loss of it. Previously, on previous episodes, we've discussed how spirits are here on Earth in human form. Spirits from heaven have been put in a human body by God, sent here to learn, grow, and mature. To do that, these spirits came to Earth with a predetermined plan. There is a plan for you for this life here on Earth. The neat thing about it is you knew all about it and you signed off on it before you came here. This plan outlines things that you intend to learn in this lifetime. The best part about this is your plan is also fully known by your spirit council. It's almost like the coach on the sideline with all the plays in his hand. He knows exactly what all these plays are good for and what they're going to be used for, and at any time can just shoot in the message from the sidelines and say, run this play. So think of your spirit council in this case as the coach. Not only does the spirit council and all the spirits a part of that spirit council know your plan, but they're all ready and willing and anxious to help you with it. Now, let me have you think back. Some of you will be very fresh and won't have to think too hard. Others of you may have to think a little bit, but think back to an especially devastating event that happened in your life. It's the loss of your spouse, something similar to that, something especially devastating. Was there somebody else that experienced that with you? Maybe they were the ones that caused the devastation. What role did that specific person play in that experience? Now here's the tricky part. You going through that devastating experience and the person that experienced it with you or was a part of it all had this plan before we came to Earth. You're going, wait a minute, back up. No. You and that person all had this planned before we came to Earth. Now, several episodes back, I told you about a situation where myself and a lady had gotten very interested in each other and had a wonderful relationship that was going on for a while. Partly because at that point I was explaining to you how all of the heavenly equity worked so quickly, so well, so wonderful to bring us together in a very rapidly mature relationship. But I also told you about how that person suddenly walked away. Now, from what I know now, looking back on that, not only was my spirit involved in planning that situation, her spirit was involved in planning that situation. But two more people from our spirit group were also involved in that. Who are they, you say? Well, this woman had a late husband, and I had a late wife. What I know now is her late husband and my late wife were involved in the heavenly equity to bring us together. And when you stop and think about that, there's a lot to unpack. But the idea is, it obviously wasn't a fluke. It wasn't an emotional decision. It wasn't something off the cuff. This was a planned event. This was something that heaven put together for us to learn, grow, and mature as spirits. When we talk about heavenly equity, and we went back and looked at just simple situations, as simple as an answer to prayer. But we also went back and looked about how my wife and I met originally, and how things had to be working as much as months ahead of time. There was a situation that was a lot of heavenly equity went into making myself and that woman get together and have a wonderful relationship. That was all a part of heaven making that happen as a part of our plan. But if you go back and look at it even further, if it's going to be 4 heavenly spirits involved in that situation before any of the 4 of us came to earth, that is a very strong plan. We talked earlier about how each spirit has this overall learning path. Things that they need to learn that they will never be able to learn fully in heaven. If you want to know the full scope of unconditional love, then you need to be away from unconditional love. If you want to know what it's like and the euphoric grandness of being constantly with Creator God, then you have to come to earth and be partially away from it. If you want to learn things like devastation and how to handle it and how to take care of it and how to trust in your spirit team to help you, then you have to be here away from having everything so easily taken care of for you in heaven. When it was time where I first lost my late wife, I was really struggling. A lot of what I'm talking about right now, I had a very vague idea about, but didn't know as well as I do now. And I think, quite honestly, looking back on it almost 2 years later, I'm thinking the only way that I would have ever been brought to the point of starting this podcast would have had to have been because of the severe loss and the overwhelming devastation of losing that woman who was so close and so wonderful and so integrated into my life. I think also the fact that the religions that I had been a part of didn't do anything to try and help also forced the issue to make sure that I went digging and looking and reading in order to come up with this podcast. This would not have happened if it wasn't for that very tragic, devastating event. Looking back on the second event, meeting this wonderful woman and having her make a free will decision to walk away, yes, I do know that there were 4 spirits involved in that decision. Yes, I do know that was supposed to be for learning some lesson or learning something from that. While I'm not sure I have the answer to that at this point, it does help with dealing with it. Because as we said earlier, it's nothing sinister, it's nothing strange, it's nothing that was just, a rapid emotional response. It was something that was planned for our life's plan before we ever came to Earth. That's the kind of support, that's the kind of heavenly equity that's behind everything that every one of us does while we're here. We have, like we talked about last week, we have the spirit team, which is so closely involved with every individual spirit that's on Earth. You've heard different discussions for terms like guardian angel and ascended master and special angels and archangels, all of which take part or are a part of your spirit team. You have ancestors that are a part of your spirit team. And in some cases, I'm sure you have some, for most of us, we have departed spouses, fathers and mothers, somebody that's very, very close that more than likely is heading up our spirit team for us. That's the support to back up your plan that you agreed to before you came to Earth. If you have that kind of support and that kind of background behind you, providing heavenly equity for you at every turn when needed, and you know you have this predetermined plan that you are on while you're on Earth. If you think about that for a while, it takes a lot of scariness out of every part of this. While it's hard to get used to the idea that my wife was removed from this life with no warning, no indication, nothing to even prep or get ready for. It was just gone. That's very hard to deal with as a human. But it makes it so much easier when you look at it from the standpoint that heaven knew this. Heaven helped me through this. Heaven is still daily helping me through every part of my life's plan. And to know nothing is happening by coincidence. There is no coincidence in heaven, and everything that's going on in your life has been pre-planned. While some of these lessons on earth for a human may be very hard to deal with, very hard to understand, and very hard to look back on, understand your spirit team is here to guide you. Your spirit team is here to hold you. And your spirit team is here to make sure that you are comforted, supported, healed, and have the protection you need to move forward. There's a whole study we can get into at some point in time of the different archangels that are very, very close to God at all times, and what their specialties are for helping you as a spirit make it through, survive, and cover all that's necessary in your life's plan. Knowing that heaven knows what's going on, knowing that your life is according to plan, and knowing that the spirit team is there to cover and help and support and guide you daily through your plan. What is there to fear? You know, when it came time to do the plan, there's no way you would have planned to do anything to hurt yourself. That's not even possible. Your spirit group, which we just barely touched on a minute ago, and I'll cover it here in a second, but your spirit group, the people in your spirit group in heaven, would never agree to any plan that would harm you or them while here on earth. Your STC has nothing but your best interest at heart and would do nothing but support you. So once again, what is there to fear? We're here to learn, to grow, and mature. So anything that happens, even a devastating event, once we regroup, ask our archangels to help us heal and regain our purpose and move forward, then it's up to us to kind of reflect back and learn what we can from that experience, grow from that experience, and understand all of that is helping us as a spirit to mature. So when we do go back to heaven, we do know how good and wonderful the ever-present presence of our Creator God is going to be, because we've experienced it without it. We do know how wonderful the pure, true, unconditional love is, because we've experienced being without it. Our life's plan, a lot of it is understanding the contrasts. We spoke earlier about hot and cold and light and dark and love and loss. But we're also going to know when we go back to heaven that we understand the presence of God as being so special. And we understand the depth of pure, true love, true unconditional love, as being even more special than we ever knew it to be before we came to earth to learn. So we know that we're here to learn, and that every item on our plan is here to help us learn and grow. And we're here to be supported by our STC on every step. Who better to plan, organize, and chart our day for us than our spirit team? They know our plan. They understand and have available to them all the power behind heavenly equity that we explained earlier. They have nothing but your best interest and your success at heart. So then why don't we just hand everything over to them and let our STC guide, direct, and manage our life? Now quickly, I mentioned a couple times spirit group. That's the easiest way to describe that is it's almost like a extended family. If we have aunts, uncles, cousins, and all that here on earth, in heaven there are spirits who are part of a grouping. And what has come to light is the situation I told you about where myself, the woman, her late husband, and my late wife, all four are part of the planning that in that particular event that happened. The reason that happened is because all four of us were part of the same spirit group in heaven. So more than likely you have had situations that have happened here on earth where you've had people who you were close to who have come into your life who, when you come right down to it, when the truth is known, they were probably a part of your spirit group from the very beginning and were also part of the plan before you both came to earth. So you have a plan. You have other spirits from your spirit group that you're working with while you're on earth. And you have this STC that's looking out for you and one watching out for you and helping you in every possible way. But then there's grief. We've learned from our disastrous incident that it is a part of our life's plan. But we also know that the rest of the world, as evidenced by how they all ran when we were grieving, they have no idea how to handle it. I think Janie Fricke has a country song that she wrote that says, she's single again. And one of the lines in the lyrics says, "Women, hold on to your men because he's single again." Well, I think some of us who have gone through the experience of a sudden onset of grief by losing their spouse, we have maybe experienced more of a lyric that should have been something like, "He's without a wife now, so women, run." Well, that sounds a little hilarious when you go back and look at it. What it's really doing is it's emphasizing the fact that most of society as a whole still has no idea how to handle and address grief. Our friends, family, co-workers, neighbors suddenly end up with what we've called performance anxiety when they're around us because they don't know how to handle it. And they don't know how to handle those who are grieving. Early on in some of the very early episodes, we talked about you can't be responsible for what you don't know, what you've never experienced, or worse yet, what you've never been around or been taught. So if society doesn't know how to handle grief, they're not going to be able to teach you how to handle grief. They're not going to be able to teach you how to handle people who are grieving. And if you've never experienced it or been taught it, how can we expect you to help? But we now have a toolkit. We talked about our grief toolkit. And with that, we have the ability now to be that special light to a person who may be going through what we went through, by simply going back and relying on our grief toolkit. Using that, we can shine a light into their very, very dark world, like we were hoping to find when we were going through it. If we can do that, and we can shine a light for them during their dark time, now that's making heaven real in their life.
We hope you learned something new about God's love and His resources during our time together. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out. You can find our social media links and our contact info in the show notes. When you're commenting, please reference the episode number. Join us next time as we again search out the ways of making heaven real in this life with Gordon Merrill.